The Stone Zone, with legendary Republican strategist and political icon and pundit Roger Stone. Stone has served as a senior campaign aide to 3 Republican presidents. He is a New York Times best-selling author and a longtime friend and advisor of President Donald Trump. As an outspoken libertarian, Stone has appeared on thousands of broadcasts, spoken at countless venues, and lectured before the prestigious Oxford Political Union and the Cambridge Union Society. Due to his 4+ decades in the political and cultural arena, Stone has become a pop culture icon. And now, here's your host, Roger Stone.
Welcome, I'm Roger Stone, and yes, you are back in the Stone Zone. Let's quickly bring in my co-host, Troy Smith, the editor-in-chief of Slingshot.news.
Roger, an honor to be with you as always.
You know, we have a unique opportunity. Owen Shroyer, who was my old co-host at the War Room show at Infowars.com, joins us now to talk about the implications and impact of this most recent assassination attempt on President Donald Trump. Owen joins the Stone Zone now. Owen, welcome into the zone.
An honor to be here and honoring you, Roger, with the classic Nixon peace signs. Roger, my first response to this, as far as the implications are concerned, I'm looking internally at Donald Trump's inner circle, and I'm looking internally at the Republican Party. Now, we all know the deep state has been out to get Donald Trump for 8+ years. We know about the persecution. We know about the lies and the propaganda in the mainstream news. And now, of course, this is assassination attempt number 2. And Roger, I know you and many others, unfortunately, it was an easy prediction, saw this coming. Now, I don't think Donald Trump is going to stop campaigning. I don't think he's going to stop playing golf. I think there might be a third, a fourth, God forbid. And then there's going to be a time before the inauguration, in between the election and then. But here's why I'm looking at the Republican Party and Trump's inner circle. Congress is in session right now. And what actions have been taken by the Republican Party in response to this second assassination attempt? None. Zero. Zilch. Nada. Not even a press conference on the Capitol stairs with a media gaggle. Not an emergency hearing demand. Nothing. We still don't even have answers from the first assassination attempt. They're not even calling follow-up hearings from the first assassination attempt hearings, where we still have many questions to be answered. They said that there would be follow-up. We get nothing. Where are the media rounds? Where is the Republican Party coming to the defense of Donald Trump? And more importantly, with now less than 50 days to go till the election, where are they going on the attack about the violent rhetoric and the division and the lies and the deep state corrupt establishment that is going after Donald Trump? Flatlining in this ever important moment. And then I look at Trump's inner circle and I have to think there's a mole. There's a leaker, maybe in a federal bureaucracy. How did this guy know Donald Trump was going to be golfing? And how did he know to go to that spot that when Trump would be turning the 6th hole and going to the 7th, that he would get a shot off? There is a mole in Trump's inner circle and or a leaker inside of these federal bureaucracies. I think that that's obvious. And now the question becomes, does Trump or his team around him have the wherewithal or the abilities to smoke out this mole or to find this leaker so that this doesn't happen again?
You pose a number of key questions there. Let's see if we can go through them. I mean, first of all, you're absolutely right. All we've gotten from the Republicans in Congress is talk. I mean, there are a few valiant members like Corey Mills of Florida and Clay Higgins of Louisiana, disgusted with the rest of the House of Republicans doing nothing, have launched their own investigations into what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, where every day we get more questions than answers. We learned recently that the majority of those who were supposed to be protecting Donald Trump that day in his detail they weren't even Secret Service agents. They were Homeland Security Department employees who had a 2-hour online tutorial on executive protection. The questions grow longer and the list of answers is almost non-existent. What do we get from the Republicans? We get talk. How could a guy fly all the way from Hawaii and lie in wait for 12 hours at that location, unless, of course, he knew that that's where the president was going to go? Now, I know how he flew there because the man they're accusing of being the killer's not on the secret domestic terrorist watch list along with Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. So he's not on the list, but she is. What's wrong with this picture? Look, Alex Jones and I previewed a very exclusive video by the Christian prophet Robin Bullock on the Alex Jones show not so long ago, in which he laid out why the Bible shows us that there'll be as many as 3 attacks on President Trump, basically taking the story in Samuel 1 and 2, but specifically the book of Samuel 1, sections 15 and 16, verses 15 and 16, where it speaks of the 2 kings, Joe Biden being the illegitimate king, Saul, whose kingdom was taken away from him because he disobeyed God, and David being the good king. Saul tried to kill David 3 times. I believe Donald Trump has been anointed to be president, so I think why he is so calm and serene through this whole thing. When asked about the assassination attempt, I was really mad. He says, I was about to I had a birdie putt that I was about to finish, and they wouldn't let me play through. So the fact that he's so calm and so serene, Owen, I think he knows that the hand of God is on him right now. I think that he has the armor of God. He's an imperfect man, as we all are, but God has often worked through broken vessels. Look at how much he's done through Alex Jones.
Well, and Roger, I know that we can both relate to that feeling and having God walking behind us and the empowering confidence, let's say, that comes with it. And so I'm glad that Trump has that with him. I'm glad that he has that presence. But my concern remains the same, that we have a problem here. And I'm afraid that there's a lack of action to address it. I mean, who knows? I guess if I'm thinking wishfully, maybe it was Donald Trump who just smoked out a mole with this operation. I don't know. I guess that would be kind of the positive side of this, if you will. I mean, Roger, there's just so much opportunity. I'm sorry to think this way, but let's just do it. I mean, we are less than 50 days till the election, so let's just think politically. Why haven't the Republicans made statements? Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have both said they want to ban assault weapons. Well, this shooter, this would-be assassin, was not allowed to have a gun. With all of his priors, he was not allowed to have a gun. Guess what? He had a gun. There's your gun legislation. Flush it right down the tubes. I mean, they can't even get on policy after this. So it's a very frustrating thing. Now, you want to talk about the positive ends of Donald Trump? He did an interview last night. He barely even talked about the assassination. He did mention feeling God's presence with him all the time and feeling like God wants him to be president. But really, he just talked about crypto and NFTs with, I guess it was a crypto podcast host. And that's kind of what he's been doing, is going into these niche areas on the internet. And I think reaching to those maybe voters that don't normally vote, aren't really politically involved. But I don't know, Roger. It's strange to think here that with less than 50 days to go till the election and Congress in session and a second assassination attempt, that the Republican Party is flatlining. I mean, I'm just stunned. I had a guest on my show yesterday who's a Border Patrol whistleblower telling me harrowing stories that will haunt you in your sleep. And he's only had one Republican reach out, and even that Republican senator was kind of like, well, I don't know if we really want to bring this to the fore. I just don't understand where the sense of urgency here is. And I'm wondering if there aren't Republicans that maybe don't want Donald Trump to win, is what I'm wondering. The pro-Ukraine war, pro-military industrial complex, pro-big government Republicans, maybe they just don't want Donald Trump to win.
That's an excellent observation. I think you're absolutely right. Look, we saw the same thing under Reagan, where you have a leader rise who is so popular, and he takes the country in a more pro-America first direction. But then the other Republicans realize he's so popular, they have to pretend that they're for him. They have to pretend that they're for his agenda. That's how they get reelected. That's how they line their campaign war chests with money. But in truth, they like the old system where the Democrats were in control or where the Republicans were in control, but their policies on things like war or spending were indistinguishable from the Democrats. So there is no question there's a large number of people, not in the party itself, not at the grassroots level, where Donald Trump's the most popular Republican president in my lifetime. But at the leadership level, these career politicians who right now would tell you, oh, I'm a big supporter of Donald Trump, but don't really want him to be elected, and certainly didn't want him to be elected, and certainly don't want him to be re-elected. We have a problem here. I think you said it earlier. They will keep trying. They're going to keep trying. Why? Because they can't beat him at the ballot box without cheating, and because their candidate is, a paper-thin hyena. You saw this week where after the debate, which she and her supporters claimed was a great triumph, where they used every dirty trick known to man. They had lights specifically positioned to shine into the president's eyes and blind him. They gave him a short microphone stand, so he had to lean over to speak. They clearly fed the questions and a commitment to fact check Trump, even though every one of their fact checks was a lie. But no fact checking for Kamala. This was all done in advance. It's not coincidental that Donna Brazile, the Democrat political operative, she worked at CNN in 2016. She got caught red-handed giving the debate questions to Hillary in advance. Then Trump kicked Hillary's butt in the debate anyway. Now where does she work? Oh my goodness, she works at ABC. A whistleblower has come forward. There is an affidavit that they've sworn, a sworn declaration. There's an attempt to discredit that. I mean, these people will do anything whatsoever. A debate's nothing. What about World War III? What about telling Zelensky, yeah, you can use these long-range U.S. supplied and paid-for missiles to strike targets deep inside Russia? Folks, there won't be an election if that happens. We're going to have a thermonuclear war, but that would be okay with the people in charge. It would be better for them than letting Donald Trump back in the White House to lead us back to peace and prosperity. We have a limited amount of Owen's time. So, Troy, I'm going to ask you to ask the next question.
Absolutely. Owen, you mentioned there the problem with Trump's inner circle and the idea that the Secret Service or people within his circle may have given out this schedule where this guy would know where Trump was. What do you think should be done about that inner circle? Do you think that he should be like cutting people out? Do you think he should, what's the process look like, do you think, here?
That's a tough one. I think it requires experience to, say, smoke out a mole or identify a leaker. I don't think that's something that can be easily done. Obviously, who's ever sharing this information to set Trump up is not going to be easy to identify. I'd like to make simple statements like shrink in your inner circle or be careful who you tell certain things to, but I don't know. I've never been president. I've never been an executive like Donald Trump. He knows far more than me as far as that's concerned. I'd like to even maybe, and I would not like to see Trump go into the bunker either. I would not like to see that, but I mean, maybe somebody advises him to do that. Maybe that's kind of the purpose of all of this, is to force him into hiding. I mean, we have to at least recognize that Secret Service did stop the guy from shooting at Donald Trump. So if there's a positive sign, if there's a positive outcome, there is that. But I just don't know how, if you're Donald Trump, you put your full faith in Secret Service, and maybe he has, maybe he hasn't. But to me, there's no doubt. Well, here, I guess I would look at it from this angle. If and when Donald Trump gets into the White House, I hope that he chooses extremely wisely who he surrounds himself with. I would just say that. As far as who this mole is, who the leaker is, how he wants to deal with that, or I don't know, his internal trusted security or circle wants to deal with that, that's going to have to be on them. I would just say when Donald Trump gets elected again, I hope he takes extreme caution in who he brings into his inner circle. I hope it's only people he knows he can trust at the highest levels, because it's pretty clear. And we've seen sellouts get into Trump's inner circle and then stab him in the back before many times during his first administration. So I'd like to avoid that. And I'd like to avoid a leaker or a mole in his inner circle when he's president. So I just hope he chooses very wisely when he does get back in the White House who he surrounds himself with.
Owen, you raised an excellent point. Last Friday, I was at a charity event in New York City, and I ran into former New York City Police Commissioner Ray Kelly. Now, Ray Kelly is a very good man. He's known Donald Trump almost probably as long as I have, 45 years. And I remember when Donald Trump was looking for an FBI director, saying, "Why not Ray Kelly?" And I asked Ray Kelly, "Why didn't you want to take the FBI job?" And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, I understood you were offered the job and you turned it down." He said, "No one ever spoke to me about the job." Now, when I spoke to President Trump back at the time, I said, "Why not Ray Kelly? You know him, you trust him, he's a good man, he's got broad law enforcement experience, he was a very successful New York City police commissioner." And Trump said, "Well, Kelly doesn't want the job." I now realize that the president never spoke directly to Kelly. So, in other words, someone told the president that Ray Kelly didn't want the job. There would never have been any Russian collusion hoax if he had chosen Ray Kelly, the police commissioner, to be as the FBI director. So it's a perfect example. You're absolutely right about the fact that he must clean house above all. You can't leave any of these unelected bureaucrats in place. That is, by the way, what brought Richard Nixon down. That's the real reason for Watergate, a plan to completely reorganize the national security apparatus and take power away from these unelected bureaucrats. So you're absolutely right. We have no choice but to clean house. Got about 3 minutes with you, and then I know you have to go. Owen, other than pray, which is the single most consistent piece of advice that I give to Trump supporters who say, "What can we do?" What do you think we need to be doing for the next, I guess it's less than 2 months now?
Well, if you do think you have any undecided voters or people that might lean Democrat, I would just try to flood them with as much information as possible. Maybe it will change their mind, especially if you're in Nevada or Arizona or North Carolina or Virginia. So, I mean, we got to get people to vote. We got to be too big to rig, as they say. I also think that we have to put pressure on our Republican representatives. Roger, the one thing that you kind of have a power to do and that I have a power to do is to move the conservative media. And I think we've done that. I think we've done a great job at that in the last 8 years, is moving the conservative media a lot closer to the truth. And yet still, I'm watching the coverage of the second assassination attempt, and still the mainstream conservative media, the Fox News types, or some of the bigger followings on social media, are still not willing to go all the way. They still don't want to show you all the information on this would-be assassin. They still don't want to show all the videos and the history that's out there. So we got to continue. You and I have to kind of continue to press that ball and move that ball downfield. But I think pressure needs to be applied to your Republican representatives, locally, nationally, to do more, mostly not just political action or statements, but we really have to make sure we hone in on stopping the steal this year. And I know that the RNC has not been completely dead in this regard. There are dozens of ongoing lawsuits right now, most of which are happening in swing states. So there are legal battles to try to protect this election from being stolen, but we cannot let that just kind of fall away with 50 days. We need to keep the focus on that. We need to keep the pressure on the RNC and Republicans on that issue. And I think by talking about it every day, by following these lawsuits, one of the things that all politicians like is an uninformed or an uninterested republic, because they can get away with anything. But if the public is informed and interested and knows what's going on, and they still choose not to take action, then that looks bad on them. That hurts their election chances. And so they have to get involved. So pray, try to get any undecided voters. If you have them in your life, get them out to vote for Trump, flood them with information, continue to move the needle on where the narrative is going in the next 50 days, and apply pressure to the Republican Party to find their spine, if you will, as these ever-present days. I mean, geez, Roger, the Democrats ran a coup against Joe Biden because they thought that he hurt their down ballot chances. And what are we doing for the Republicans right now, down ballot, as the continued persecution and second assassination attempt against the leader of the Republican Party just went down? And what are we doing to assure down ballot votes? Nothing. So we need to apply that pressure, and we need to just continue to get people informed and out to the polls.
All right, there you have it, folks. Owen Shroyer, until recently a political prisoner himself. Like me, we've been through the meat grinder, folks. We know what it's like. The host, of course, of the great War Room Show, the original War Room Show, the real War Room Show at Infowars.com. Owen, thank you and God bless you. Thank you very much for making time for us today.
Thank you, Roger. Always great to be on the Stone Zone.
All right, folks, that was Owen Shroyer. Make sure you catch his great show at Infowars.com. Now, Troy, it's amazing how overnight so many political things happen. You can't even keep track of it anymore. So you're going to kind of lead us through some of the latest breaking news and developments. I was on the air live at 77 WABC Radio in New York, where my radio show on Sundays now has been expanded to 3 hours from 3 to 6 Eastern time. You can always hear it by going to WABCradio.com, no matter where you are in the planet, WABCradio.com. But I was on the air when I heard the shocking news that there had been yet another assassination attempt on the president. So, Troy, take the lead here, my friend.
Roger, I have a couple of facts about that, because immediately I read, because we were getting a lot of conflicting reports about what had actually happened here. And one of the most disturbing things that I heard about this case is this gentleman had set up a backpack, which we pulled the photo of and we showed you yesterday. We have it right there. He had set up a backpack. He had a scoped rifle, and that is his setup outside of the Mar-a-Lago thing. Now, he was set up there for a kind of unspecified amount of time. We don't know exactly how long he had been set up there, but the reports say that though some people have said it was hundreds of feet, reports are claiming that Trump came within 300 to 500 yards of this shooter from his position, and that he was fired on by the Secret Service. And then he gets away somehow, Roger, and gets into his car. And I don't think a lot of people, I haven't seen this covered anywhere, he wasn't arrested until he was 50 miles away from Mar-a-Lago, going north on I-95. So this gentleman was actually able to set up a rifle stand on Mar-a-Lago, sit there presumably for at least an hour, and camp out, and then get 50 miles up I-95 North. And my question to authorities is, if he hadn't been an idiot and gone on I-95 North, literally the biggest highway in Florida, like, what if this guy had gone into the swamp? Would we be seeing him being arrested, or would he just have disappeared? Because it would appear to me, Roger, that though they had the license plate, this guy could have easily evaded the police in his setup. And I just want to get your thoughts on these details, because for me, somebody who's been to Mar-a-Lago, I've seen the unbelievable security they have there. These kind of failures, I keep thinking back to Butler, say, this can't be a coincidence. I mean, this is unbelievable.
No, you raise an excellent point. Now we also learn that he had been in Ukraine, that he'd been recruiting people to go to Ukraine and fight as mercenaries. It occurs to me, therefore, that he has something in common with a man named Maxwell Yerrick. Now, Maxwell Yerrick was brought to my attention by a source that I have inside law enforcement in Pennsylvania as potentially the shooter in Butler, or potentially involved in a conspiracy. Maxwell Yerrick is a man who has an arrest record, 2 different convictions for assaulting Trump supporters outside Trump rallies. He also went to Ukraine to fight and recruit and fight as a mercenary. That these 2 men are unknown to federal authorities is literally an impossibility. It's an impossibility. No, Stone did not say Yerrick is the shooter and Thomas Matthew Crooks is not. I didn't say that. I questioned what the involvement of Yerrick is, and I said, could he be the shooter? Not the same thing. But we've seen a picture. Let's take Crooks. We've seen a picture of Crooks on a cell phone just before the shooting. Who is he talking to? Is it that difficult to question? Oh, the FBI couldn't break the encryption on his cell phone. Really? They had no problem doing so when they arrested me. They were able to access all of my email and text messages. You know what they found? Nothing. That's what they found. No Russian collusion, no WikiLeaks collaboration. They had to invent process crimes to try to pressure me into testifying falsely against Donald Trump, which of course I refused to do. I find it very hard to believe the government doesn't know more about this guy. Immediately, I begin getting messages from people saying, "Oh, he's a Republican." No, he's not a Republican. The new detainee. But it's amazing that he was able to get away. You're right about that. I mean, plus his car was there for 2 hours, at least 2 hours in advance. Other reports say he may have waited and lain in wait for 12 hours. Now, if it's a beautiful Sunday and Donald Trump has just come off the campaign trail for a series of successful events, you know how he takes his recreation. There's 3 possibilities. He's going to go play golf at his course in Jupiter, Florida, which is about 45, 50 minutes north of Palm Beach, an amazing golf course. Or he's going to go play golf at his Palm Beach golf course, which is where this incident took place. Or he's going to go play golf at the Doral Trump International facility. It's a pretty good bet that he's going to play golf. But how is it that the gunman guessed correctly that he would be in Palm Beach and not the other 2 courses? I think that's a legitimate question to which we really have no answer.
Well, and Roger, I know you, and I want to be very careful here because I know you are very careful in what you disclose and what you don't disclose. And if you can't answer any part of this, feel free to just move on. But my question to you is, obviously the Secret Service, I would assume a lot of the Secret Service, if not all of them, have his schedule on a daily basis to say, okay, he's going to be here now, he's going to be there. Do you have any idea, just ballpark, the number of individuals on a daily basis that have access to his day-to-day schedule? Is it 20? Is it 30? Is it 50? Is it 100? Would you be comfortable talking about that at all?
Troy, I'll be honest with you, I don't really know, but my very best information on this particular case is that it never appeared on a written schedule. I was told it was a last-minute decision by the president, decided that he wanted to play golf. He could have gone to any one of 3 locations. He went to the one that he went to. But I don't know. There are just too many unanswered questions about this guy. We're kind of right back where we were regarding Butler, Pennsylvania. I mean, who's going to get us the answers? Where is the House Republican investigation into Butler? Other than, as I said earlier, a few valiant independent members like Clay Higgins or Corey Mills, or Senator Josh Hawley, who's done an amazing job. Where's the rest of the Republican Party? Why are they silent? Anyway, you've got some videos for us. Why don't we move through some of those?
Absolutely, Roger. We have a couple things here that I wanted to pull up for you because it's just unbelievable. Like you said, as we get closer to this election, it feels like we have more to talk about each day than we actually have time to talk about. So let's start with one of your favorites, the kleptocrat herself, Hillary Clinton. I'm suggesting last night during an interview that Americans should be put in jail for posting misinformation. Now, there actually have been people from the 2016 election who were arrested, put in prison for posting anti-Hillary Clinton memes. So this is something that's happened before. I want to play this clip and get your thoughts on what the Democrats are planning for 2024 and why is Hillary involved in this. Let's roll that.
And boosting Trump back in 2016. But I also think there are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrence. Because
I wonder if she's familiar with something called the First Amendment. I wonder if she's familiar with free speech, although I must say, Hillary's getting soft. You see, now she just wants to civilly charge you or criminally charge you, where in the past, she would just have you killed. Because I don't care who you are. I don't care who you are. You don't know 58 people who just coincidentally committed suicide. Let's face it. This woman is so evil. I think it was Alex Jones who said she actually smells like sulfur. Wouldn't surprise me at all. She will never get over being beaten by Donald Trump in 2016. He broke her for good. And she can go to bed every night knowing that she will never be president of the United States, and that, well, sadly, more than half the people in the country, despise her. She's hopeful. I mean, I do think she actually maneuvered to try to get on this ticket. She figured that, like Joe Biden thought he was smarter than Obama, and once Obama gets in there, he'll prove to be a dummy and I can run the country. That didn't work out too well. Joe was told to go stay in his office and don't come back until we tell you to. But she maneuvered to try to get on this ticket. The idea of two women, I think, was more than they were willing to contemplate. Plus, if they'd ever gotten elected, if Kamala Harris, God forbid, were ever president and Hillary Clinton were vice president, let's face it, Kamala would need a food taster. Repugnant remarks, as usual, from Hillary Clinton today. All right, let's go forward. What else you got for us, Troy?
I have one Clinton-related question for you, Roger, just quickly before we move on to that, and that relates to Bill Clinton. I saw Bill Clinton speak at the DNC. He's always waving the flag now, and they're all in the social justice thing. But I was not alive at the time. I mean, he was president when I was born, but only for a couple months. So I've gone back and I've kind of watched some of the documentaries, and Clinton, talking about and maybe this was not the case at the time, but he seems to have been making a large pitch to moderates, and moderates were a big part of Clinton's plan as far as him appealing to the American people. And I wanted to ask you, what's it like for you to see them go into the social justice thing? I mean, that's pretty much what they planned all along, wasn't it? That whole moderate thing was kind of just a cover to get into power so that they could push this agenda that they've always kind of believed in, right?
Well, I would say this. Bill Clinton is 100% politician. So, for example, in in Arkansas, he went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court arguing that the Arkansas State Police should have the right to pull you over based on your race, racial profiling, which I find vile and repugnant. I opposed stop and search in New York City. A lot of my conservative friends were angry at me about it, but I don't think they should be able to pull you aside and question you based on the color of your skin. But Bill Clinton thought you should. He's a chameleon. He would be whatever he needs to be to get votes. I don't think he ever really believed in much other than the money and success. Hillary, on the other hand, going all the way back to her role where she was fired from the House Impeachment Committee that was sitting on the impeachment of Richard Nixon because she repeatedly lied and leaked during that investigation. She's an ideologue. She's a hardcore leftist, more in tune with today's Democrat Party. Let me put it another way. Bill Clinton could not be nominated in the Democrat Party today. He's not radical enough. He's not progressive enough. He's not woke enough. Although he's so talented as a politician, he might be able to convince you that he is. In truth, he believes in power. And you got to give the guy credit. When you consider how many women he sexually assaulted and raped or exposed himself to, all of which is documented in my book, The Clintons' War on Women. It's amazing he became president at all. All right, let's move on.
I think it is, and so Roger, another, the Clintons, they're pretty bad, but they're, they have gone at least, ceremoniously into the shadows. And one of the worst people that we see in Congress today is Dan Goldman. And I know that we covered this at the time that this happened because it happened right before the Butler shooting. And that was his comments on MSNBC where he called for President Trump to be eliminated. Now, these are making the rounds again, these comments, because, of course, the second assassination attempt. And we talked about this a little bit yesterday. I want to roll this clip of Dan Goldman and get Roger's thoughts on what the overall, temperature is in the Democrat Party on these remarks. Do you think that they're going to continue to say these kind of things, or do you think they're going to realize, hey, maybe we shouldn't be talking like this? So let's roll that clip and get Roger's thoughts.
Unquestionable at this point that man cannot see public office again. He is not only unfit, he is destructive to our democracy, and he has to be eliminated.
To me, that's provocative. See, one of the problems here is that members of Congress have a legal protection. They can't be sued or they can't be held responsible for those things. But Dan Goldman, the trust fund baby who bought himself a house seat in Manhattan's Silkstocking district, is responsible for the atmosphere of hate. Basically, you saw, I guess it was David Plouffe, the chief advisor to Kamala Harris's campaign, a former aide to Barack Obama. He said that Donald Trump had to be, terminated, did he say? Or I think that was the direct quote. No, the Democrats would have you believe that Donald Trump is responsible for the assassination attempts on Donald Trump. These are the people who have fed a climate of hate, a climate of division, and then they turn around and point at Trump. It's Trump's fault. There's a great letter in the paper in Cincinnati that I saw saying Trump brings the assassination attempts on himself because he objects to our open borders. Trump brings the assassination attempts on himself because he objects to our hurtling towards World War III. There's a video, I'm not sure we have it, of all of these Democrats saying repugnant things that whipped up this climate of hate. It wasn't Donald Trump who brought these assassination attempts on himself. It has been the overheated rhetoric of the Democrats.
Well, and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, and you remember, just using another figure as an example, Roger, when Chuck Schumer sat outside the Supreme Court, he stood at a podium and he screamed, you have released the whirlwind. He was talking to Gorsuch and Kavanaugh. He named them specifically. And he said, you will face the whirlwind and you will pay the price. And it was just a few months later that we saw a gunman running around Kavanaugh's property. And there's nothing done about this. There's never anything done about this because when it comes to incitement, Roger, we saw this in January 6th, the Democrats really stretched everything they could to try to make the case that President Trump incited what happened on January 6th, but they were unable to do it. Meanwhile, you look at them, we don't have to look very far to find Chuck Schumer inciting the violence of Supreme Court justices. We don't have to look very far to find Dan Goldman on MSNBC on live television calling for President Trump to be eliminated just days before somebody goes out and takes a shot at him and nearly kills him. And the idea, when the Democrats have power, Roger, we have these sweeping investigations where people like Steve Bannon and Peter Navarro go to prison. But when the Republicans are in power, like you've said over and over again, we can't even get them to turn over a stone on the damn field where the shot happened to figure out what happened. They don't even care, and they just continue to move on. What do you think of House Speaker Mike Johnson? Is this a failure on his part, or is this the Republican Party as a whole? And how can we as voters start to address this?
Look, I'm deeply disappointed in the House Republicans. They talk a great game, but we still have no idea what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. I don't suspect we're going to get any more information here. And of course, they continue to vote to fund the war in Ukraine. So we need a top to bottom cleansing of our government. Donald Trump needs to clean house at the intelligence agencies to begin with, at the Justice Department. And then we frankly need to affect this realignment we've talked about, in which we welcome Kennedy Democrats and Democrats like Tulsi Gabbard into our party, maybe a new party, or at least a new Republican party, and they can have Dick Cheney. They can have John McCain's daughter and son. They can have a little Adam Kinzinger. These people stand for war. That's what they want. They want war, and they're not going to stop until they get it. It's very disappointing, but look, I have a sentimental attachment to the old Republican Party of Lincoln and Eisenhower and Goldwater and Reagan and so on. But I think we need to recognize that the parties and the left-right divide is really just a Hegelian device that they use to distract us from the fact that there's only one party, the incumbent party, the party that's in power, the party that is committed to enriching themselves and making you poorer, the party that's interested in controlling your life, the party that's interested in getting reelected and filling their campaign coffers with special interest campaign contributions. Donald Trump is a disruptor of all of that. This is why they hate him so much, which is why they are so committed to his destruction, because he stands athwart all of this and he says, stop, and wants to take us in a new direction. We're on the cusp of a political realignment, but we have to embrace those who were for Kennedy or Democrats like Tulsi Gabbard. I was disappointed the president bring up either one of their names at the debate. On the other hand, I guess if I had, Klieg lights being shined in my eyes to disorient me, and I knew that the moderators had been completely briefed in advance, had all the questions, and it was going to be 3-on-1, I guess I would have gotten a little distracted myself.
Well, and just the idea, everything he said, they fact checked, and the questions. I mean, just as a journalist, I was sitting there. It was just abhorrent. It was abhorrent. The questions were essentially, Mr. Trump, when did you stop beating your wife? Miss Harris, why are you amazing? That's basically how it boils down to. It was the most ridiculous debate I've ever seen. And I think, as you said, that was a lynching, what we saw on there. They literally took a presidential candidate for the United States Oval Office. They took a candidate and they destroyed him. And you know what? It's kind of an amazing thing because, Roger, despite the fact that it was 3-on-1, despite the fact that they had spotlights in his eyes, I think the Harris people coming out and asking for a second debate immediately and Trump rebuking them, I think that puts Trump back in the power seat, back in the catbird seat. We didn't really get a chance to address this. What do you think about the Trump campaign's decision to not go for a second debate and the fact that the Kamala Harris debate asked for another debate right afterwards? That usually indicates that they felt that they didn't do too well, right?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not sure you could name a media outlet that would fairly host a debate. Why walk into another situation? For those who say Fox, no, not Fox. Maybe you don't remember when Bret Baier called Arizona for Joe Biden when more than half the votes in Arizona had not even yet been counted. Never been held responsible for that journalistically. So you wouldn't get a fair shake there. No, Mr. President, they're not going to let Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham moderate the debate. So there is no media outlet that Kamala Harris would agree to debate on because she knows that she can't win a fair debate. And you saw this week when she tried for the first time to do a one-on-one interview with a ABC affiliate radio reporter in Philadelphia. And when asked how she would bring down prices, she reverted to that portion of her debate presentation that she had memorized, saying that she grew up in a middle-class household and the people in their neighborhood cared what their lawns looked like, and her mother worked very hard to make ends meet. In other words, she has no plan to cut prices, folks. No, the prices are not high because whoever's creating the product is gouging you. The prices are high because their costs are greater, and their costs are greater because we have inflation, and we have inflation because of our massive spending and debt. Not because of greedy people who engage in free enterprise. It's really fundamental. The only person in the country doesn't understand it, of course, is Kamala Harris.
Well, and it's fundamental stuff, Roger. And I think the goal of the mainstream media and how they've covered this election in total is to get us to stop focusing on the issues. And that's why yesterday, when we played the clip of Pete Buttigieg saying the last thing that J.D. Vance and Trump want is to make this about the issues. I mean, you got to be kidding me. Let's look at the issues. Let's just compare a grocery bill under Trump and then a grocery bill under Biden. Let's see who's doing better. I mean, because it's almost like these people, and you have to believe that this is true, Roger, the people like Pete Buttigieg, the people that exist in that Washington, D.C. bubble, you know, they're not going to the grocery store like you and I and looking at the prices of this stuff. They're not seeing that, you know, they have less and less money every month, even though they're spending less and less because their basic stuff costs more and more. They have maids, they have cooks, they have people that deal with this stuff. These people live in absolute luxury there in DC. They do basically whatever they want, and they don't care that we're struggling. They have like Dan Goldman, perfect example. I saw you put out a tweet. This is a guy that exists off a trust fund, so he doesn't need he doesn't need a job like you or I. He doesn't care that the price of his bread has gone up 4 times in the last 4 years. He doesn't care, and it speaks to the divide, I think, not only in our politics but in our country. There's people that have a lot. They're doing pretty well right now. And the people who don't have a lot, they haven't been doing well for a long time. And that's a result, I think, of the years of Clinton, Obama, Bush, these people. Because really, as you said, the endorsement of Dick Cheney for Kamala Harris really ties it all together in saying that, yes, Clinton, Bush Sr., Clinton, Bush Jr., Obama, yes, they might have had different political parties on paper, but their agendas were exactly the same. And there's a reason why Americans' lives didn't improve at all during that time. And then they suddenly did improve under Trump. And it just so happens that the guy, Trump, who brought us that success, who showed America that there is still life in our economy, that we still have that ability to dominate on the world stage, that's the guy that they're shooting at. That's the guy that they want wiped off the face of the earth. And that's the guy that they spend literally all of their time attempting to stop from getting back to the Oval Office. I think, for people, if you want to know why you need to vote in this election, that's got to be at the top of the list. Look back at the last 30 years. There were 4 years where you had somebody in the White House who actually stood up for you and fought for you. And otherwise, they kicked you in the teeth and they sold you out to the rest of their business friends, and they laughed as your prices went up and you were gouged and your family had less resources while they had more. We have another clip, Roger, that I want to play of J.D. Vance this time talking about the reaction of President Trump. Now, you've known Trump for a very long time, and you've described, I think you said a couple episodes ago, I'll never forget it, that Trump pisses ice water. I think that's pretty hilarious. But let's roll this clip of J.D. Vance talking about what Trump said after the assassination attempt, this latest one, and get Roger's thoughts on the toughness of Donald Trump. Let's roll that.
These are the first public remarks that I have made since my running mate was nearly assassinated for the second time yesterday. And President Trump, I was actually sitting at home in Cincinnati with my 7-year-old, and I get a phone call, and it says Donald J. Trump. So I answer it, and he says, "JD, you're not going to believe this, but they tried to do it again." And I said, "No, they didn't. You're joshing me. What's going on here, sir?" And he says, "No, I was playing golf, and the Secret Service found somebody who was trying to shoot me." And I say, "Oh, my Lord, sir, I'm so glad you're okay. I mean, are you doing okay? Are you not just physically okay, but everything's fine?" He said, "Yeah, I'm doing fine." And this is just who Donald Trump is. He said, I'm a little mad because I was about to make a birdie putt on the 6th hole, and they wouldn't let me finish." And the guy's literally like, this happened. I mean, he calls me right after. This is 10 minutes after, and he's pissed off that they won't let him finish his birdie putt right after they found a guy with an AK-47. But by the way, that is kind of the guy that you want to be president of the United States, right? Who's fazed by nothing, who's telling jokes afterwards. I think I was, without a question, bothered by it more than he was, and I was in Cincinnati, Ohio, 100 miles away from where this went down. But I do think that we should take this opportunity to call for a reduction in the ridiculous and inflammatory political rhetoric coming from too many corners of our politics.
some very good news that comes out of all of this, and that is that Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida, who I've been a harsh critic of, may have an opportunity to redeem himself. He has announced that the state of Florida is going to conduct their own investigation into the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. I think we have a clip from Governor DeSantis on with Jesse Waters. Let's roll that.
Joining me now, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. So this happened here in your state. What are you going to do about it, Governor?
Well, the state of Florida is going to do our own investigation. Clearly, there were multiple violations of Florida law. We also, I think, have an interest in vindicating the truth about where this guy came from, what his motivations were. The people of our state deserve that. I don't think it's in the best interest of this country to say that agencies like the FBI and DOJ, which are trying to prosecute Trump in South Florida, they're on appeal at the 11th Circuit trying to reinstate an indictment that had been dismissed, that they're the best people to turn around and, one, give us the truth about this defendant, but also to prosecute the case where they don't have as strong of jurisdictional claims. And so we are going to be doing our investigation. I'm going to have more to say on that very shortly about what precisely we're going to do. But I would note, Jesse, I've played golf with the president when he was in office at that course. It's a great golf course. That part of the property, the 5th green, the 6th hole, and then the 7th tee, that is right there up against the fence line. So the fence line is covered with shrubbery. So if you were just walking by, you couldn't really see inside. But that is clearly the biggest point of vulnerability on that course, because if you're burrowed into those shrubs, you have a pretty clear line of sight on a number of golf holes. And so when I heard that this had happened, there were kind of conflicting reports. Maybe 2 people were shooting at each other. They said, no, this was meant for President Trump. I immediately knew exactly what part of the course it would have been in. So how did this guy get in there? How was he able to burrow in? And yeah, we're thankful that the Secret Service agent, when he saw the muzzle of the gun, fired and caused the defendant to leave. But that guy was burrowed in there, it seems like, for the rest of the night. How did that happen?
Right. Thank God for that agent. Thank God for that agent. But that course should have been swept before, and that vulnerability should have been neutralized. When you hear the Democrats talk about this, I don't personally feel that much sorrow or that much sympathy or even regret that this happened twice, Governor. How do you understand that?
I think what I saw a lot of Democrats attacking Trump today. Really didn't even give this much of a thought. They're just all out with the rhetoric all over again. And look, we'll see what this guy consumed. It seems like he was a consumer of a lot of these corporate media narratives that the Democrats propagate. We'll see. I think that's what the investigation can show. But I will say this. There's a lot of people in our society who may have a screw loose. And if you're constantly telling them that American democracy is going to end if this guy gets elected president, well, somebody is going to feel that they're justified for doing this. And so I do think the apocalyptic rhetoric has increased the threats to Donald Trump. No question about it.
Yep, because everybody wants to be a hero if you tee it up like that. Well, Governor, thank God you're investigating, and please share whatever you learn from your state's investigation. That's really important we get to the truth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm glad to see that Governor DeSantis is taking action. I don't know what that's about. There's one other video I want to get in here. We have just a few minutes, but Robert F. Kennedy, one of the most effective videos I've ever seen, talking about the stakes in this election. Let's take a look.
Everyone has heard President Trump's signature phrase,
"Drain the swamp in Washington, D.C."
His instinct is spot on. The problem is that in Washington, it's not just about a few corrupt individuals. It's a whole crooked system. It's the federal agencies, it's the lobbyists, it's the think tanks and research organizations, it's the university and the academic groups and the media. And it's the corporations that have captured these agencies and turned them into sock puppets for the industries they're supposed to regulate. Well, I've spent 40 years suing almost all of these agencies and many of the industries. And I know the names in many of these agencies of the bad actors who need to be moved out. I understand the perverse incentives that put agency capture on steroids. I know how this system is supposed to work to protect the public interest and how it actually works to protect the mercantile interests of the regulated industries that have captured it. And I know how to fix it. When you sue an agency, you get a PhD in corporate capture and how to unravel it. And that's exactly what I'm going to do with Donald Trump's backing. Let me tell you what we're going to do. We're going to appoint honest officials who don't have conflicts of interest. We're going to listen to whistleblowers and act on their revelations. We're going to slam shut the revolving door that sends industry executives and lobbyists in and out of government. We're going to fire anyone who betrays the public trust or lies to the public. And we're going to prohibit federal agencies from using their powers to harass political opponents. That's what it means to drain the swamp. One of my priorities in Washington will be to make sure that President Trump can follow through on his promise and return us to a government of the people and to make America healthy again.
Very, very powerful message. You know, it does disturb me that the instant he withdrew as a candidate, the Federal Election Commission reflected that, and the Department of Homeland Security canceled his Secret Service protection. Extraordinarily petty. These are, of course, the Department of Homeland Security, who oversees the U.S. Secret Service. Used to be under the Treasury Department, now under DHS. All right, I'm afraid we are out of time for the day. Folks, please go to the Rumble app, download the Rumble app on your phone, and then follow us here at rumble.com/Roger Stone. That's where you see the Stone Zone every day at 8:00 p.m. Eastern. So set that. Not only should you follow us, you can see the follow button there on green, but also set your notifications to remind you that when we're on. Now, obviously, you can watch the show at worldviewtube.com at 4:00 Central, 5:00 Eastern every single day. If you want to get to it first, that's where you see it. But if you miss it there, you can go to Rumble and see it again at 8. On behalf of my colleague, Troy Smith, and myself, join me, please, in praying for the continued protection of God Almighty for President Donald Trump, and we'll see you tomorrow on the Stone Zone.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone. Where's Roger Stone?